Yo, welcome to the channel. I'm KeylowK and today we're going to be rating the Grand Sniper. This build is created by the Basic Gamer. As always, I'll be going over the pros and cons of this build and giving my opinions on it. If you don't know who the Basic Gamer is, then check out his page. It will be right here on the screen. The Basic Gamer does Elden Ring content on multiple weapons and showcases them in his videos. He shows you the best ways to beat bosses such as Millennia and more. So if that sounds like your thing, then go check his channel out. I know he would appreciate it. Also, drop him a sub as well. Just to be clear, he doesn't actually have a name for this build, so I made the name up myself, and I thought it was a fun name. As always, before we jump into the content, I'll give you all a quick overview of how we judge the builds that we rate. Let's get it. This is just a quick overview before we jump into the content. There are 3 categories that we judge the entire build on. Each category gets a score from 1 to 10, and the build gets an overall score of 30. We rate these builds on 3 things. First one is drip, how fresh does this build look? The next one is PvE, so how much damage this build can produce, and how well does it work against enemies and bosses in the game. And last but not least, PvP. So basically, how well does this work against other players? So looking at this build, my first initial thoughts was, this looks alright. But when putting this build together, I feel that this build could do without the mask, but that's just my opinion on it. I do like the fact that you end up getting 3 dex points off the bat with the mask though. So that's a W and an L. I don't know how I feel about it at the moment. Apart from that, we have the Beast Champion armor, gauntlets and greaves, which are fire in my opinion. I love the fact that the armor has beast-like animals engraven in it. If I had seen this in real life, I'd be in awe. Anyways, the little details on the armor set is impressive. The weapons on this build is the Bolt of Grandsax plus 10, which is a spear type of weapon and has a innate lightning affinity to it. It is also a legendary armament that has pierce damage to it. The next weapon is the Commander's Standard plus 10, which is a halberd that has standard and pierce damage on it. This weapon is mainly for the buffs, but not gonna lie, these weapons in my opinion just don't suit the build. Maybe it does for everyone else, but I just don't see it. For me, the mask and weapons just don't suit the armor for this build. In my opinion, the armor is fire, the rest, looks wise, is kind of meh. The mask, I'm really just sitting on the fence with it. It's like a fusion between a samurai and a knight. I'm not mad at it, just a little confused. But all in all, this is still a solid build. Let's get to the next section. Let's get it. The Basic Gamer doesn't say what the starting class is, so I've pinned it down to the Vagabond or the Confessor. And for this build, I have picked the Vagabond. So if I'm wrong, then let me know in the comment section. The Ashes of War are Ancient Lightning Spear and Rallying Standard. Rallying Standard is a buff that lasts for 30 seconds and it gives 20% more damage and 20% for all damage negation. In PvP, it gives 2.5% more damage and 5% for all damage negation. The talismans on this build is the Ritual Sword Talisman, Shard of Alexander, Godfrey's Icon, and the Lightning Scorpion Charm. We are running the Finger Seal plus 25, and the incantation is the Howl of Shabriri. And last but not least, in the physic, we have the Lightning Shrouding Cracked tier, which temporarily boosts lightning attacks, and the Spiked Cracked tier, which temporarily boosts charge attacks. Also, a side note is that to keep this build at 175, like the Basic Gamer's content, you need to use a Ruin Arc for Godric's Great Ruin to activate your stats, which should look like this. I had 5 points left over. I should have put them into Vigor, but I ended up putting them into Dex anyways, even though it is past the soft or hard cap or whatever you call it. Anyways, I'm really looking forward to playing around with this build. I had seen one thing that really interested me about the basic gamers content for this build, so we ain't gonna muck around here, we're getting straight into the content. So apparently this is how you do it. You take your physic, then you take the Howl of Shabriri, then you have to two-hand the Commander Standard and do Rallying Standard, and then after that you two-hand Bolt of Grandsax, and then you'll end up doing your Ash of War, your Ancient Lightning Spear. So what we will do is that we'll give this a try on the Tree Sentinel. So let's have a go. Sheesh. You probably won't ever use this on Margit the Far Omen, but I think it's a good example of just how OP the Bolt of Grandsax is. I honestly thought this was going to one-shot Godric the Grafted, but I was mistaken. That damage is so disgusting, man. It is just not funny. As you can see, I was on my way to Renala and I decided to put this to the test again and see how well this does against the Iron Maiden. I thought I would wait for the second phase, basically to see if I could one-shot Renala, and here's the results. Not gonna lie, the damage that she's taking from just pressing R1 is not bad. Like, look at how much damage she is taking. It's a fair chunk out of it. So yeah, so I'm quite impressed with that. As you can see, I do get the setup. I was hoping for one shot, but 2 shots will do. This really goes to show just how tough this giant, massive, colossal finger creeper is. Because I just did one Ancient Lightning Spear, it took off 4k damage, and it's still alive. This thing's basically like a boss in itself. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Here's a little bit of lore on the fire giants. The giants were a race of people who worshipped the foul god and were bound to tend the flame for their god for eternity. When Queen Marika ushered in her age of the Erd Tree, she launched an attack against the giants, fearing that their fire might burn their Erd Tree. For untold ages, the fire giant has tended to his flame, trapped in a cycle of pain and suffering. However, when the Tarnish arrives at the mountaintops of the giants, the fire giant's vigil is interrupted. The Tarnished seeks to harness the giant's flame for the ritual, and the fire giant must fight to protect this curse. As you can see, this build is doing rather well against the fire giant. Granted, we're still in the first phase, and if you look at the damage potential from one shot, it does about 5k damage, so that's actually really, really good. but as we go into the second phase, it does get a little bit harder, but you'll see what I mean. These giants really do have thick skin, basically like iron. Every time I seem to hit them with my Ash of War, I really was not doing that much damage. I don't know if you can actually lock on to their hands, but for some odd reason I couldn't. So I was just taking my shots wherever I could. But in saying that, it still defeats them pretty easily. And this was my first go, so basically this build is speaking for itself. It really is a good build for PvE. And I am just super happy with it, so yeah. I think everyone can agree that this weapon is the sniper of Elden Ring. From what we just witnessed, the bolt of Grandsax really does hit you like a truck. I mean, 5k damage with the buffs is truly overpowered, and that's not an exaggeration. Literally, nothing can really touch you if they are at a distance. The Ash of War just obliterates everything in its path. I did have a little trouble with the fire giant in his second phase. That giant can tank some hits. It goes from triple digits if you hit its weak spot on its first phase, but the second phase, it don't take much damage. It's still in the 1k area, so that's still good. And because there is no auto target for its hand, because that is its weak points on the second phase, the only real option is to take your shots where you can. It's also not bad for up close and personal battles as well. Considering it's a spear, it has very good range to keep enemies away from you. The sparks when you hit someone with R1 or R2 is a very nice touch as well. So in my opinion, this weapon can put this game on easy mode. If you can get this build the same stats or higher. I know this basically one-shots most normal enemies, as you just witnessed. This can basically carry you by just spamming, I guess, the Ash of War. Anyways, on to the next one. Let's get it. The Grand Sniper is a build mainly for PvE and its damage for the Ash of War. So I want to see how well this will do in a PvP setting. I do believe that this build has potential in PvP. It has the range for this type of battle, but will it be any good in PvP? So as usual, we're just going to get straight into it, and I hope you enjoy it. This first run was not the greatest. I was just more or less trying to feel out what I could do with this build. So yeah, this round is not too pretty. And I just go gobbled up. GG! As usual, we emote. Hey! I try the Ancient Lightning Spear just to get a feel of what he does, and as you can tell, he dodges. I was wondering what that purple stuff was on his weapon. I found out what it was anyways. There you go, I quickly run in for an attack. I've got the advantage here. I should have went in and been more aggressive, but yeah. As you can tell, this happened. GG's. Hey, he's got the same mask as me. Right here, I should have done the Bolt of Grandsax, but I wasn't too sure if this was the Scarlet Rot Breath, so I guess I was wrong. Back and forth, back and forth. Here's where I like the R2 on this, because it does, like, you can play some mind games. There, this is where I did a charge attack and he did not expect it, and I ended up getting him, so I was quite happy with that. There you go again, see, I did it again, and then I just decided to spam R1, and we actually won one. GG's, let's go. we both got Commander Standard. He tries running to poke me. I try to come in for an attack. I keep running away. He tries running in and attacking again. Then I try the ancient lightning spear. Then I get hit. But this one, did you see that? I got hit from a mile away. I'm pretty sure I saw this guy before. Hey, it is too. Sorry. Yeah, I do remember him.
Hey!
So this guy comes up and does a running attack. I try going for a bit of a poke. He comes back and counters with an attack. I try the Ash of War. Start running again and try to attack him. Again. Oh, we got him. I should have been more aggressive there, and because of that, I had to back out. I think if I was more aggressive in that last part, I would have won that round, but that was a me problem. That definitely was a me problem. Hey, it's you again. Hey, it's the Commander Standard again. Comes up for a poke again. I'm trying to poke him so I can get the advantage. I come in for a swing. I end up getting him. He gets me. I leave. I get him again. I just need one more hit. Unfortunate. Unlucky. GG's. This round I actually liked. It was pretty fun. Watch this. One hit. Sheesh. If you can get it, because it's a high risk, high reward kind of thing, you can get the Ash of War. Whew. The payoff is so good. And GG's. This build ended up being not the greatest for PvP. The range on the spear is probably one of the best, if not the best, in the game. Most of the time, when I did use the Ash of War, people would just dodge it, which is definitely a con for the spear, because this build heavily relies on the Ash of War. But in saying that, if you use R1, it comes out pretty fast. This build has been okay in PvP. I did have high hopes for it, as it is a spear, so I thought the range would be a game changer, but sadly, that was not the case. To get the Bolt of Grand Sax, you need to get to the capital city of Lindau. If you do the ritual and the mountaintops of the giants, then you won't be able to get this weapon, so just keep that in mind. Let's get into the last part of this content. Before we go through the pros and cons of this build, we will actually go through the score. So for drip, I'm going to give this a 5.5 out of 10. As I said at the beginning, I think the mask and weapons don't suit the armor. It's like an ancient Japanese samurai trying to clash with the Roman army armor. For me, it's just not a good fit. I'll stand firmly on this score, but if you think that this deserves a higher score, then let me know your reasons why in the comment section. For PvE, this build really does excel here. You could complete Elden Ring fairly easy. Just a side point, but if you think you can use this Ash of War on Millennia, then you're absolutely wrong. Anyways, for this, I am giving this a 9 out of 10. The Ash of War is so good for most, if not all, for PvE. This build is not bad when it comes to close quarters battles. Strength is what it scales with for physical attacks, but who needs strength when you just use the Ash of War, right? Just make sure to put more emphasis on the Flask of Cerulean Tears for this build. And for PvP, I am going to give this, sadly, a 4 out of 10. Not gonna lie, this was pretty bad for PvP. The range on the spear is nice, but you just don't get that much damage when it's close quarters combat. It does keep the opponents away at a good distance where I could poke at them and they wouldn't come any closer, so it was a good tool for that. I did have high hopes for this build, but sadly it did not perform as well as I thought it would. Maybe it was just a me issue? I don't know. Anyways, so for this build it becomes a grand total of 18.5 out of 30. Now that is still a decent rating. In all honesty, this build would thrive more in PvE than it would with PvP, as you can see. But with that being said, we're going to go on to the pros and the cons of this build. So, let's go. The Bolt of Grand Sax is basically a sniper, and it also hits like a truck, doing roughly about 5k damage with buffs and all. That is the highlight of this build. This will basically make you Elden Lord with relative ease. I was making short work for most bosses and harder enemies, as you can tell in the gameplay. The range on this build is really good as well for close combat situations. It's good for keeping that distance away from people in PvP, and the poise on this build is decent as well. I've been through a lot of the pros in this build throughout this content, but let's get into the cons. One con for this build is that the damage for up close battles is okay. I wish it was a little better than it is currently. The biggest con to this build is that you need Godric's Great Ruin activated to keep between the 175 level mark. That's probably the biggest con here, so you can get that massive damage output. Looks wise, the mask is not it. I'd love to see it on a katana build as it would suit, but that's just my opinion on that one. And people also just dodged the Ash of War in PvP. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video just as much as I like making them. Thank you for tuning in to watch the content, and if you did like it, then please, for me, like and subscribe to the page for more Elden Ring content like this. If you would like me to rate a build from someone, then let me know in the comment section. Anyways, I hope you all have a blessed day or night, and bye.